Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
You're listening to an Anazal Ministries podcast.
Is there a place for morality in the post-apocalypse? This is Systematic Geekology. We are the priest to the geeks. And I am one of your geekologists, Kevin Schaeffer, joined by two of my favorite geeks here, Christian Ashley and TJ Blackwell. Christian, TJ, how are you guys doing today?
Great. Couldn't be better.
It's just a nice, easy Sunday afternoon.
I'll take it. That's I mean, hey, we're good. We're here. We're recording. Always a pleasure. And yeah, so today's episode will be on The Last of Us, both like the TV show we're also going to be talking about in relation to the game because TJ and Christian have both played the game. I am coming as someone who's only watched the show, but we will get into that more. So and fair warning, there will be spoilers abundant in this episode. We'll probably talk in more generalized terms at the beginning, but we are going to get deep into both seasons of the show and then the game. So here's your warning now. But before we get to that, guys, what have you been geeking out on lately? Christian, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I am in the middle of finishing up the End of the Road by Brian Keene. He's one of my favorite horror writers, and he basically took a bunch of blogs that he had and he explained, hey, you may have noticed my books aren't in stores anymore, and here's why. And I'm like, as someone who used to follow him, it's like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. The publishing industry kind of sucks, but he's written in a very fun way, a very like in-your-face way. I really enjoy what he's done so far.
I know you're very excited to just be reading what you want now that you've graduated and you can actually pleasure read. It is wonderful.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing feeling.
Yeah. It's about time, right? Oh, I was starting to think he was just not going to graduate. I don't know. I think he kind of likes being in school.
I do have friends that are like that. Yeah.
I hate being in school. I hate learning things that, it's not that I don't care about them. It's more like, I want to choose about the things that I care about.
Yeah, right.
When you're told what to read and what to learn, it really does make a difference. But yeah. TJ, what about you? What are you getting out on?
Well, it's only been a couple of weeks, so it's still Elden Ring Night Rain.
Yeah.
What a great time to be alive. Yeah, man, it's so nice. Yeah. It's difficult. It's extremely difficult. That's it. If you liked Elden Ring, you'll probably like Night Rain. If you didn't like Elden Ring because you don't like RPGs, you'll probably like Night Rain because it takes out all of the building your own thing. If you like roguelikes, but you don't like Souls games, you might like Night Rain.
I don't like other people, so I'm not playing Night Rain.
They have just now, as of like 2 days ago, buffed the solo aspect of Night Rain.
Okay, maybe they will have gotten me there. FromSoft, you've done it again.
They've done it again.
Christian, I love how you're in the process of applying for ministry jobs and you're like, I don't like other people. But
hey, it's one of the greatest practical jokes God ever pulled on me was putting me in a place where I had to love other people as he's making me grow as a person.
It is a challenge. Well, and it's funny how many like introverts are in jobs that you would expect an extrovert to be in. So I think you will do well. But but that is a funny of like, put that on your resume as you're applying.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm working on my misanthropy.
Right.
I love it. Well, and for my geeking out on, so we are in T-minus 1 month till the Superman movie. So I currently just, so I cannot wait. But currently just started rewatching Superman and Lois. I actually never finished the show. I loved it. I just it had switched networks and stuff, and then I just lost track. But now that it's all on Max, soon to be again renamed back to HBO Max, because Warner Brothers. But I love that show. I think. Yeah, I mean, Zaslav, that guy. Yeah, well, I'll try to refrain from my usual rantings at him. But anyway, Superman Lois is a wonderful show. I'm really enjoying getting back into it because I had watched it when it premiered, really loved it. And again, I didn't get a chance to finish the show. Now I am going through it all before the Superman movie. And I highly recommend it. That's one I was a big Arrowverse fan, particularly in college. And this one it's sort of, the nice thing about Superman Lois is kind of its own thing too, because it expanded from the multiverse of the Arrowverse, and so you don't even have to watch the other shows to jump in on this one. But yeah, I would love to talk more about it with you, Christian. If you ever do watch it, I think you would really like it, and that'd be a really fun one to discuss. So that's my big geeking out on. I've got my tickets for Fantastic Four. I am so ready for Superman tickets to go on sale. Hopefully this week, we will see. But yeah, so awesome. Yeah, so that excellent topics here. So and also before we get into our main topic, just want to thank all of our Patreons. And if you like our show, please support us. Leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We really appreciate it. And if you like us on YouTube, any one of our videos gets 50 likes. Will Rose's promise to film himself frolicking through a field of flowers is still there. It will. If you want to see that happen, come on, just give us some love. It'll be super cute. It will be.
Yeah. He already is.
Doesn't want to see. He is, but who doesn't want to see that? Yeah. So
I do.
Awesome. Okay, well, let us get into the main topic. Again, spoilers ahead. Aside from the general, what is this show? What is this game at the very beginning? We are going to get deep into the story here. So if you've not watched or played Last of Us, you might want to go do so and then come back. But to start off, right. Let's see, TJ, what can you tell us, if you had to describe what is The Last of Us to someone who's not played the game or seen the show, how would you describe it?
So I would only tell them about The Last of Us 1 to start with. And I would say The Last of Us is like a post-apocalyptic story about a man who has lost his daughter, taking care of a girl who lost her family, and trying to get through the apocalypse. And I would probably tell them it's zombies. It's not technically zombies.
But they are.
It's the best zombie alternate, I think. It's the coolest one. Super dope. But I would honestly say whatever it would take to get them to play the game.
And would you say the same for the show, at least the first season?
No.
Okay, interesting.
No, I think the first season is good. Okay. Let's not go. The show is good. The show's good. I haven't watched season 2 yet just because I've been doing a bunch of other stuff, and then Night Rain came out. The show's great. But the game is so much better. Not only better than the show, but the show is a good show. Like, it's better than a lot of other shows. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You would be hard pressed to find
for a video game
who,
adaptation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody who played The Last of Us who does not put it in the runnings for the greatest game of all time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't say that about the show.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. No, that's good context there. Yeah. Christian, what about you? So, what's kind of your background with Last of Us? And, have you watched all of the show, played all the game? Where are you at?
Yeah, forever ago when I first got my PS4, I got the Uncharted 4 that came with it. I think I bought the Attack on Titan game, and then it's like, oh, this Last of Us game is here. People are always saying that's amazing, so I picked that one up with it, and it was amazing. I mean, they were completely and utterly right. I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the world. I'm not big on certain parts of the ending, but overall, even my issues with that doesn't detract from the fact that this is very likely, if not a 9.5, maybe even a 10 for me.
Yeah, it's definitely up there.
And the show, I was there immediately.
Yeah. You've been watching from the beginning. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so TJ, I'm glad that you said that about the context of amazing game and like still really good show, but just like to put in context there. So for me, I've never played the game. I don't know if I've talked about it much on Systematic Geekology, but like my background with video games is I played quite a bit when I was younger. I wouldn't call myself like an avid gamer. I mean, I was playing like Star Wars Battlefront 2, Batman Arkham Asylum, some of the big ones that came out. But then as it got harder for me to play video games physically, I just kind of gave up. And there are a lot of accessibility options for gaming now. And there are a lot of like disabled gamers out there. For me, it wasn't so much like there weren't options. It was just a matter of like, the amount of time I spend watching movies, reading, writing, and stuff that I only have so much time to. So like, it was kind of better that I have my other mediums that I prefer. But I have friends who are avid gamers. So by the time Last of Us had come around, I wasn't in like playing video games anymore. So even though, despite its acclaim and everything, that was just like past my gaming era. So, but nonetheless, like having good friends who were avid gamers, I knew about it. I knew how acclaimed it was. And so I started watching the show from the beginning, and I loved the show. I think, like you said, TJ, I mean, if you're just watching it as a show, I think, especially that first season is an excellent piece of TV. It's really well written. It is amazing acting. It's that kind of like, the whole term of elevated horror is kind of overused, but if you have to put an adjective to it, I think it fits that description in the sense of it's not your standard, like, jump scares and, or just blood and, violence or whatnot. It's a very serious humanistic look at a post-apocalyptic story. And, it's, they're in, I know they're not zombies, like you said, but these, the creatures in it, that's not really the focus of it. It's more about the human narrative here of how these people navigate a post-apocalypse, and it's done really well. And so I've watched the show from the beginning. I have enjoyed both seasons. I know we're going to get into a lot of breaking down both seasons and some of the positive reception and the criticisms toward both. But that's kind of where so since watching the show, I've watched it from the beginning, and even though I never played the game, I kind of read up on the differences to the game and the show after each episode because I'm really fascinated by that. So I like seeing what the creators did differently for the show, what remained the same, what they added, all of that. So that's kind of where I am. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that it's, the focus is not on the cordyceps fungus. Because even in the title, it's called The Last of Us.
Yes.
It's us. It's humanity. It's The Last of Us. And it's not them. We're not playing Dying Light, Dead Island. We're playing The Last of Us.
Yeah.
And that's really what made the game so big is I probably to this day have not played a game where I felt like it was so easy to connect with a character. Because you spend so much time with Joel and Ellie, and they're, you go through the world, post-apocalypse. Most people are dead. A lot of the people that aren't dead want to kill you. And you've got these, pseudo-zombies, super awesome pseudo-zombies based on a real mushroom fungus, which just has the same name. I don't know. I'm sure they did do that on purpose, but that weirds me out a little bit. Are they like predicting that cordyceps are just going to get like way stronger in the future? I hope not. But the focus is always on Joel and Ellie and the other human characters in the game. And it just feels so real. It's very realistic. You saw it humanistic earlier. That's the perfect term for it because it's so easy to put yourself in Joel's situation. It's like, well, I don't want the Fireflies to get Ellie. I don't want anybody to get Ellie. That's my new daughter. Christian is bad at consuming media.
No, but honestly, Christian, we're always going to get into the big twist at the end of season 1 and game 1. But right there, your reaction to it points to, I think, why it is so well written is that it elicits such a strong reaction from the viewer, from the player, because you're coming at it from both angles of like, okay, yes, he is, in many ways, it is a selfish decision what he does, but also after going through this journey with him, and I'm just speaking to this as just someone who watched the show and just like viewed that, and also like, was drawn into this relationship between Joel and Ellie, you also understand that he is not sure he can bear the pain of losing another daughter. So we'll get into that. That's a little but again, just the fact that it elicits that stronger response and is still debated to this day is, I think, one of the biggest strengths of this narrative.
12 years later.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Right. Yeah, that's
and once again, like, it is selfish, and that's
right.
part of the point. It's The Last of Us, and Us is Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
In the first game.
And that brings me to the first part. So before we get into like season 1 of the show, just, TJ, you said like, this is one of the greatest games of all time, all ever made. Looking at that first game, what are some of the big takeaways for both of you that made it so compelling, so groundbreaking, so much bigger than other video games you've played?
You want to go?
Yeah, sure. The combat's a huge part of it too, that I really enjoy. You've got to be smart about how you go about it. You can't just go guns blazing into everything because, not every shot is going to take down a clicker, or you may be overwhelmed by the amount of human enemies there are. So you're going to have to stealth. You're going to have to throw bricks and bottles to make sure that they think you're somewhere that you're not, and then take them from behind to conserve ammo. You have to think about these things. It's not just mindless. There's a purpose behind what you're doing, and you've got to be strategic about it. And then how do you upgrade things? How much are you going to explore the area around you? Are you going to look at the little things that have no impact on the actual gameplay, but build up the world itself? You find little items left behind by people and telling their stories about, how they ended up where they were. How did they die? How did they lose someone to this and drive themselves into madness or something? And you can choose to just play the game and never pick any of those things up, or you can enhance it a little more by looking at stuff like that. And of course, the switch that is later on in the game, you start off as Joel, and then when he's unable to do it for himself, you play as Ellie. And that was a huge twist, and it was a fun one. It's like, oh, the gameplay is different. There's a smaller girl I'm in control of now that can't overpower opponents in the same way that Joel can, with a bigger muscle mass and more training. So I had to be even more strategic. I had to think about how to use her correctly. And then keep her alive, and that makes you feel even more for her. Want to keep her alive in an area. I think they do that extremely well over this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I can really only say probably one other game I felt the same way about, which is pretty much what you said, and it's Dishonored. The world feels so lived in and so real, even as off kilter as Dishonored can be. It's very immersive. It's extremely immersive, and it's. I'll give it to The Last of Us. It's more immersive because it's like the real world and stuff, details. But they do it so well. It's really amazing.
No, and I think that's what really drew like Craig Mazin and HBO to adapt this story, is that it is such a, as a video game, it translates really well into more prestige TV because it has this really intricate narrative. It has these fully fleshed out characters that you want to explore. And that's why, especially with season 1, a lot of it is taken straight from the game. Again, they certainly add stuff. They certainly change things. But a lot of it is very faithful to the game. And because it's already there, and it just like really lends itself well to a television adaptation. So let's get into then, looking at season 1. So, we've already touched on kind of the overarching story here of, Joel is someone who lost his daughter at the beginning, on Outbreak Day, at the very beginning of all this. He goes into just isolation and, it kind of becomes a shell of his former self as the years batter him down and he's just living and surviving this apocalypse. And then years later, he meets Ellie, who is... not only becomes kind of a surrogate daughter, but also she is the human who is immune to the cordyceps virus, and as such, is being looked at by the Fireflies, a sort of like rebel organization trying to rebuild humanity that wants to see if they can use her DNA to produce a cure. And so that becomes kind of the driving force of the narrative of season 1. And I just want to say, I want to get you guys kind of like favorite moments from season 1. One of mine, I think that has been critically acclaimed and widespread is the Bill and Frank episode, which was episode 3 in season 1. That was such an moving and emotional episode. This is where Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett play two characters who fall in love, and there's a lot to say about this episode because we just had 2 episodes of introduction to the show where we met Joel and then we met Joel and Ellie, and to immediately go to an episode that's a more standalone and just goes to characters that aren't going to be there the rest of the story, I think was a really fascinating move. And this is one I read about after I watched the episode, that while that storyline is hinted at in the game, it's not fully explored. And this was more of the first kind of invention for the show. And it really stuck out. And there's and there's a lot I love about this episode, both from the performances of Offerman and Bartlett, the, element of, okay, two people still falling in love in the midst of the world's ended, and they find a reason to keep going. I also want to say something about this episode because some criticism has been levied at it in disability communities for, not all, but some have pointed out that it kind of falls into that trap of the better dead than disabled narrative. And I want to speak to this briefly because, that is a very common trope that is really ableist and has been done so many times. If you want a prime example, the book and movie Me Before You is a prime example of this. But where I think it works in this, and that I don't really put into that trope in this scenario, is because, so in this episode, you follow their story over the course of several decades, from them meeting to falling in love to building a life together. And then toward the end, right when we think that one of them is going to die at the hands of a clicker, it then does a jump forward, and actually it's the other character, Frank, gets some sort of illness, and he's now in a wheelchair. He's his body's more emaciated, he's deteriorating, and at the very end they decide to he wants to make it kind of go out on his own terms, and so he makes the decision to end his own life, but he wants his last day to be one of joy. And so he and Bill, they have their last day together. They have this a marital bliss, and and they have that moving score and everything. Oh, it's such a music. And then they choose to die together. And the reason I don't put it into that better dead than disabled narrative is because I think that they don't explicitly say what kind of illness this guy developed, but based on the context, I kind of assumed it was cancer. So it's not like a disability like I have, or that where it's it was very much a terminal illness that was making it hard to live. He was in constant pain. B, you're in the apocalypse. You're not going to have access to any kind of healthcare and resources. So it's going to be a different thing. And then C, like I said a minute ago, he just chooses to go out on his own terms. And I think that's more powerful than just saying oh, I'm so miserable. It's okay. They've built this life together. They've had a wonderful life, and they've managed to find happiness and love in the midst of a post-apocalyptic world. But they decide to go out on their own terms. And I thought that was really beautiful. So that's why there are a number of reasons why that episode really sticks out to me. That's one of my absolute favorites. What are some of the standouts for you guys? Like a favorite episode, favorite scene from looking at season 1?
Yep. It's definitely Bill and Frank, just because, it got a lot of flack when it came out, and people were like, oh, it's not necessary. They're just trying to make everything gay. Shut up.
Yeah.
For a show to match the kind of world building that a game can do, which video games have a massive advantage in this respect, because you're in control, you're discovering the world, you're learning about it on your own free will. For a show to do the same thing, they can put whatever they want in the background. It's not going to matter. It's a show. Most people aren't going to comb through it, watch it a bunch of times, see everything in the background. To get the same level of world building out of a show as you can a game, you have to do something like this, like an anthology, just to show what it was like for the people who aren't, caught up in the cure the disease plot that we are, to live in this apocalypse. And it's super cool. I am, can't say that word. I am just huge fan of post-apocalypse, I don't even know, compounds. And getting to see Bill and Frank set theirs up, that's awesome. That's super cool. That's my favorite part of State of Decay. For any zombie gamers out there, that's the only good part of State of Decay 1 is the compounds. But just that much, getting to see them live their life in this apocalypse was super crucial for the show, I think. And it also is also beautiful. It's an amazing episode. I do think it's, from a prestige TV standpoint, probably the best episode in the series that I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the only one that I would put up there with the greats of, television.
It's a stellar episode. I mean, it's one that I just couldn't forget the first time I watched it, and it stays with you. But
Hey friends, your pal Will Rose here. Sometimes I ask myself, have you ever wondered how you can support systematic ecology? Yes. Yes, I have. And well, if you're like me, you want systematic ecology continue to grow and thrive. And you can do that by joining Patreon for as little as $3 a month. As a patron, you get bonus episodes. We answer bonus questions that our patrons get to hear. We have special shout outs. We have certain episodes that the patrons pick. So you help us create and curate the content that we put out for the world to hear. You even get free merch. And when I say that we're a worldwide podcast, that I'm not being hyperbolic. Somebody told me that we have over 20,000 subscribers from all over the world, and just half of those subscribers join Patreon for $3 a month. We would be set on keeping moving forward with the tech that we need to have the quality of podcast that we want our hearers to experience. And it'll help us get to certain events and conventions so that we can see you face to face and geek out with you in person. And let me just share that there's no shame, no guilt. If you can't join Patreon at this point, that's okay. That's okay. Just keep listening, keep sharing, keep liking, because yes, we're proud of what we're doing at Systematic Ecology. And friends, guess what? You can subscribe to Patreon for free to receive one extra bonus episode a month via the Patreon or Spotify app. That is fantastic. And we're glad that you're a part of it.
Christian, what about you? Either that episode or something else? Like, what's a favorite episode or scene or anything from season 1?
I think it's funny how different episodes affect different people, because I felt next to nothing in that one.
Really?
All I could think of were the words Emmy bait as I was watching it.
See,
I think it does a great
bad
job
faith
of world
media
building.
consumer.
I think they did a great job at the world building aspect that TJ brought up, in that showing how can this come together, why Bill and gosh, what was the other guy's name? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Frank.
How they ended up together. Frank, thank you. And what they were going through. I don't believe in suicide for any reason. I was like, okay, so you're taking that way out. I understand your character motivations for it. I just completely and utterly disagree with you. So at least they got me to connect with the character reasons for why they did it. And it's something that was changed massively from the game. Bill is still alive in the game. So you get to interact with him, and you get to actually talk with him and learn a little more about him. And you can choose to learn about the things that they make out of this episode, which is, I'm glad they did it. Don't get me wrong. As in like an experimental kind of way. And I think ultimately it works. It's kind of, and I may say middling of the road, as in like not the episode itself is mid, as the kids these days say, but as in like it's kind of perfectly in the middle. It's like it doesn't offend me. I'm not angry at it, but neither am I like, because all I heard was like, this is the greatest episode ever on TV. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then I watched it. And I was like, what episode did they watch? So my actual answer, just to show the difference, is going to be, I think it's Left Behind, which is essentially the DLC of the game as an episode, where you get to see Ellie's backstory, her and her friend Riley. Yes, thank you. As they're exploring this mall underneath Boston, getting to be kids in the midst of an apocalypse. It was fun. Yeah, they're acting stupid, but they're teenagers. It made perfect sense. And not to say to get what they deserve, but what happens because they're young and dumb, and they weren't thinking things as through as they should have. And there's a reason those things were locked away. But you got to see them connect with each other. This also, as we're dealing with flashbacks, but also going to the present day, which one of the great sections of the game where Ellie is your main focus. Joel's injured. He can't do anything. You're forced to work as her. And then dealing with her being attacked and everything, and how it's built off of what happens here. If that doesn't happen, what happens later doesn't make as much sense. And that's one of the things that DLC was good for, is it helped build up on things before. It's like, that makes more sense. That's why Ellie is this way. And I love that one far more.
Yep. That's good. That's fair. I don't think there's a bad episode of season 1.
No.
It's just not, I don't
it's a
think
pretty
it's
good, I mean,
genuinely-
like you get both, I think it's a stellar pilot. You get
Yes.
early on, you get the relationship between Joel and Ellie established really well. I think they have Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal have great chemistry, and you meet a lot of interesting supporting characters. Almost all of them end in very dark ways, but that's kind of the but also there are still moments of levity too. There's moments of them just kind of exploring and and bonding, and I really like that. And then I guess we should address, because the nature of this podcast, so the episode when they meet the religious group that the guy turns out to be a monster, and there was that that aired. I remember it was Rainn Wilson tweeted okay, and Rainn Wilson isn't even I think I want to say his faith is based in Middle Eastern philosophies, if I'm not mistaken, but anyway, he's not. It's not like he belongs to
I want to say he was Christian, at least for a time. He's written a couple of books.
Yeah. But I remember, okay, gotcha. Okay.
I think that's how you pronounce it.
So that sounds right. Yeah. But he had a viral tweet that went around and saying okay, as soon as this guy came on, I knew he was going to be this horrible monster, and just kind of saying does every religious character need to be immediately demon? And there was a lot of there was a lot of truth to that. I think I don't mind that they had a character who was a part of a religious a group that turned out to be this monster predator. I mean, there's it's gonna happen, but I also think it could have been balanced out with maybe not even in that episode, but in another one they could have met someone who is someone let's say Shepard in Firefly, one of the best preacher characters ever. You could have had that balance. I agree with that. I think if you're especially in a show and a story that is showing nuance and perspectives from people all over, to kind of make that your only really religious figure be this horrible monster. I agree. I think there could have been someone else to balance that, because so I agree with that. It's still a really well acted episode, and it's the darkness of what happens is very much in line with the rest of the story. But yeah, it would have been, I think, particularly in Jackson, it would be nice to meet someone who maybe they're, either they're a Christian, or it could be even of another faith. A person of faith who is a more genuine person would have been a nice, way to balance that. But so that would be my only.
I understand where he's coming from.
Right.
Because game 2, the moment I laid eyes on, you're not a good person. And then as soon as they went through religious stuff, it's okay, I've seen this a million times before.
Yes.
It turns out he's going to be evil. He may turn out to be a pedophile. And it turns out not only is he a pedophile, he's also a cannibal. Is this what religion does to people?
Right.
And I don't think that's what they were going for. But it doesn't help that there's nothing to counterbalance it and show both sides of the equation, because these are real things that happen in the world. Cults exist for a reason, that have been built off of Christianity multiple times over. As someone who loves studying such matters, it's not wrong of them to create something that has happened in the real world. It's just when that's all you have as a representation, it kind of goes, is this what you think of religion? Which may not even be true, but that's all I have on screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I do understand why Rainn Wilson would come out and say that, because Baha'i is one of those faiths where people are hey man, are you crazy? So I definitely know where it's coming from. It's just so easy to do that at this point. And I feel like it's especially prevalent in the zombie apocalypse genre.
Oh yeah, in zombie and horror, absolutely. It's just
every one of them. Priest, evil immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
0% chance that they are not evil.
Right.
It's like an army. So if you're in the army in a Romero film, you're evil by default because he has a grudge against the army.
Yes.
Yeah, but at least they're in the army.
No, absolutely. I just think especially in a series where, you're looking at multiple perspectives and you're even just one character who is a person of faith who's not a monster would have been a good way to counterbalance that. So that's about my only criticism of season 1. But it's still, I mean, overall an excellent season of television. Now let's get into the finale, because this is a nice segue into season 2. So I know we already kind of hinted at it. So, we've talked about it on, I think I talked about it in the What's News episode. The big twist at the end of game 1 and season 1 is that Joel and Ellie make it to, actually, where did they go initially to meet with the Fireflies? Was it
Colorado University
Colorado? That's
Boulder or something like that.
Yes, that's right. Okay.
And then
so
they've left there. They've gone to Salt Lake City.
Right. So they go there, and this is where they've been trying to get Ellie to the Fireflies this whole time. But when they get there, the Fireflies capture Ellie. They capture Joel and put him aside, and they tell him look, the only way we can possibly make a cure is if Ellie dies and we, take her DNA and everything. And so now Joel is presented with this choice of, do I risk everything to risk Ellie's life to possibly save humanity? Or am I going to be selfish and kill everyone here and rescue Ellie? And he takes the latter. Not only that, but he does not tell Ellie the truth here. He hides it from her and says oh, there was no way. And he kills not only the Fireflies, but also an unarmed doctor. And yeah, this is how season 1 and game 1 end. And it, like you said earlier, this has now been debated going on 13 years now. And again, I think regardless of where you stand on this issue, it is a pretty powerful storytelling for that question to still be asked all these years later. And I think in both, having only watched the show, I think the show does a good job of, kind of leaving it to the viewer to decide what was the right choice. Did Joel massively screw up here? Was he completely evil? Or do you understand where he's coming from? I thought some critics have said that the game has a more nuanced and subtle way of presenting that debate. I thought the show did a good job. That's just my perspective. But yes, okay. So let's just get into, I don't want to spend the whole episode just talking about this reason, but it is the driving force of the narrative and paves the way for season 2. So do you guys kind of stand on that? And no judgment here. We're
they all deserved it, especially the doctor.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's how I feel.
Okay. Well, for another take, I'm going to say Joel is in the wrong. I understand why Joel does what he does because I've been through the entire game with him. I've been through the entire series with him. I think it's the wrong call. I think it's the selfish call. Now, in the game, they focus a little more on, that's probably what so many people were mentioning, is that through reading some of the notes you find in the world, there are some hints that maybe it might not work, that maybe they've done something similar before. They're not entirely, it's not entirely spelled out black or white. So if you read those, go, oh, well, maybe it'll fail with Ellie too. So that's a reason for me to save her life. I disagree completely with that idea. Look, it's not an easy decision to make. It's not one I want to have to make. But if I have to weigh one person I love versus the entire world, I would hope someone would give me up to save, for the chance to save the world. Yeah, it's not 100% guaranteed. There's no such thing. Is this how viruses work in real life? No, but the game has said that they do. So this is what we're working with. And in the world of this game, in the world of this TV series, this is our only way of potentially even finding a cure. And I'd be willing to die for that. But my issue is that they didn't ask Ellie first. It should have been her decision. If she had been awake,
yes,
and she'd agreed to it, and Joel said yes, that's one thing. If she's not told at all, so she doesn't have a chance to tell Joel either way, no, I want to live. If she said she wanted to live, yeah, sure, I'm a little more on Joel's side because we know where she stands. Versus nothing. So her agency is really taken away from her, not only by them, but also by Joel. And that's when we get into things in season 2, which, spoilers, by the way, the game presents what Joel does in the first game as good. And then it kind of backtracks a little bit in 2 and says, actually, what he did was really bad and he deserves what happens to him. And some people will say that's not what they're saying, but that's exactly what I got watching that scene play in the game and in the show. And I refuse to accept that because you were telling me that was the good thing. And now you're backtracking and you're supposed to be heralded as geniuses for doing that. that's where you start losing sympathy for me.
I don't know. I think a couple of things. Christian Ashley and Spock are both crackpots. Don't listen to them. The needs of the me outweigh the needs of the you, actually. But seriously, I do agree with you where you said, it's more like if Ellie had consented, like if Ellie was even aware that this was the case, she probably would have done it. She probably would have said, that's okay. If that's what has to happen for, us to save the world, then I'll do it. And Joel probably still would have flipped out and tried to kill the Fireflies. No, I do not think Joel is, obviously and morally correct. He's not. The Doctor did not deserve it that much, but the Doctor definitely consented to the plan. So,
well, this is why I asked the question at the beginning of is there a place for quote unquote like standard morality in the apocalypse? Because this is where everything changes. Like the same decisions that we make day to day are out the window in a world like this. And so, and I don't agree with you guys are saying in terms of it should have been Ellie's choice all along when she's robbed of that autonomy, that both Joel and the Fireflies are at fault there. And at least everything, I am more on the side of, because knowing especially that Ellie would have sacrificed herself in a heartbeat, I think, should have gone through with it. And I know, but it's also I think about it. Okay, so for me, having gone through, I was going to talk about Christian just before this. I just lost a coworker yesterday. I've been through a lot of death in my life, because it is really committed. However, it's one thing to lose a friend. If I was in a position where it was my niece and nephew's life on the line, I don't even want to think about that. But if that's I would fight tooth and nail. I would sacrifice myself. I would do that. It's a whole other thing when it is your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew, all that. And it just changes everything. So you understand where Joel is coming from, but you still have to put aside. It's hard to even say that that's selfish, fighting for his or her daughter's life after having already lost a daughter. But again, it ties back to this is literally the fate of the world on the hands. And also, Ellie would have sacrificed herself. But again, we're all in agreement here. It should have been Ellie's decision. It should have been her autonomy. And both parties robbed her of that.
Yep.
And that sets the stage for
she got robbed
everything
twice
to come.
over.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
And but the thing is, of course, there is a place for classical morality in the zombie apocalypse because the world may be over, but you're still you, aren't you?
Right. Yeah. No. And that's I agree. It's why episodes like the Bill and Frank storyline prove you can still be you. You can still find love. You can still be so. Yeah. And all of those things come into play. So it's something that that's what I love about this episode. As gut wrenching as it is, it asks these really tough questions that are still debated today, and I think both of your perspectives are valid because there's no easy answer here. But that does set the stage for Game 2, Season 2, and the repercussions of that choice matter everything to the story going forward. So let's get into now, the second part, both the game and the show. So I know, I'll start with you guys for the game. Again, I know that what I know about the game is that originally Last of Us was just going to be a single one, and then Neil Druckmann and other creators said we're only going to ever do a continuation if we think of a good story. And it was, from what I know, is that. Lied. Okay, well, fill me in on some of this. So, this is from what just talking to friends. I know, I'm just kind of gathering. So, you can fill me in more on what was the background for Game 2 when it was determined Joel had to die, all of that. So, tell me from your perspectives. Yeah, you can feel free to go into the history of the game and then kind of your overall perspectives of the game first. Then we'll get into the show.
Yeah, I think they should have probably stuck with the plan of The Last of Us being the last of it. Mm-hmm. There was no need for a sequel. People were curious, okay, what do they do next? Now what? Just Joel and Ellie just live wandering across America forever. So there were questions to be answered. There are lots of ways to answer those questions. Could have done comic series, books. Could have done a show as a continuation. You could have done a lot of things that weren't making a second game. That being said, the second game really isn't a bad game. I think they just make some choices that are so unbelievable to most of the audience of The Last of Us that they were just kind of screwed from the beginning. I'm not sure. I'm not like super familiar with the development of the game, but man, they were really doomed from the start, because to follow up such a game, it's almost impossible. That's like Bethesda just went through it when they released Starfield, because Starfield is a fine game.
Yeah,
it's okay. Skyrim is really what it was following up there. So sorry, horrible, terrible game, because people were expecting something like Skyrim or Fallout 4.
Yeah, I was initially very happy with Starfield.
Suffered the same problem.
I think for every go, I rated it a 9 out of 10 when we did our What's New. I was like, no, it's gone down to like a 7. It's not, it doesn't mean it's bad. Yeah. It's just, I was just early game hype.
And like the first 10 hours are honestly emptier. Really good. Yeah. Like those first 10, 15 hours of Starfield are great. But that's the kind of issue that they would have ran into here regardless. And it's one of the best games of all time, with a game that's just okay. I think there's enough disparity there for me to say it's one of the worst sequels of all time, just because it's trying to follow up one of the best games ever.
Yeah.
And it is just an okay game. They innovated so much in The Last of Us 1 that people were kind of expecting the same thing of 2. And we were expecting it to be like this massive blockbuster. Everyone's going to talk about it for the next 10 years. Everyone's going to play it. And it's not that. There were some really cool things that The Last of Us Part 2 did, and I think it's like extremely well crafted. The game looks beautiful. Narratively, it's cohesive. That's a compliment. And also, the guitar playing minigame was really awesome. It's really cool. Those are the good things I have to say about the game.
Okay, yeah. Christian, anything to add? Like, would you agree that like you think it should have ended at the first game?
I can't agree with that. I understand why TJ said it. It makes sense, but I want to know what's next. So I want them to make something else, unless there's like a complete story. There's no room at all for anything to happen next. I want more in a story. I want to see where characters progress from there. And let me preface this part. I said it before on the show, in case this is someone's first episode. I have not actually played The Last of Us Part 2. I have only watched someone play it, because I was curious to see if it was good, because I heard all the controversy. And I was like, do I want to spend money on a game I won't like? Turns out the answer is no, I don't want to spend money on a game I wouldn't like. And I didn't like it at all. But I will say they improved on the combat. They improved on the enemy AI. The world building is still pretty intact for the most part, and what you can find in other locations. Where they utterly fail is, once again, going back on the message they delivered in the first game, where they seem to think that, Joel lied to her and everything, but he was still in the right for saving her life. And then he gets brutally beaten to death in a terrible fashion that you're just helpless. It's like a snuff film, pretty much. And some people paid for that snuff film, and I feel sorry for them. And it was still a very successful game. They sold a lot.
Oh, yeah.
People loved it. They're not me. But then you go through this thing that could be interesting, and that you shift from Ellie to Abby, where the show hasn't done as much yet. But part of that is because they haven't gotten to some of those aspects. Because I think they're doing 2 more seasons after this to cover the second game.
I know at least one. I haven't followed to see if there is going to be. I'll have to check, but I know that next season is going to start off with Abby's perspective.
Yeah, it's probably going to be mostly about Abby, I would assume.
But the issue is, she's a shallow character. Her thing is revenge, and that's it. She should just rename herself Revenge, and it served the same purpose as being named Abby. And there are segments in the game where she and Ellie kind of interact with one another in different ways that could be interesting, but ultimately fall flat because the game wants you to side with Abby sometimes. And I've never once done that because she's not interesting. Her supporting cast is some of the weakest I've ever seen in a video game. Ellie's isn't that much. Well, sorry, Ellie's is better. I'll put it that way. But they're not great in the game as far as building her up as a character and figuring things out. I would put more on Team Ellie on that side. But then you get to final confrontations and everything, and it pulls that stupid trope of, no, I won't kill you, even though I've slaughtered like 200 people to get here.
Hundreds of people.
It's like, revenge is wrong. And cool. Maybe if you'd established that in the game a little better, I would have been on your side. And I'm not going to explain how it happens or anything because you haven't seen it yet. But it gets to a certain point where it's unearned. And if there's anything I despise, it's an unearned ending. And neither character looks good at the end of the game. I am curious to see if they could fix that in television. Judging based off of season 2, my answer is probably no. But we shall see.
I do think, part 2 is a lot weaker than part 1. I think everyone who has ever played both will tell you that. But that being said, there is at least one moment in The Last of Us Part 2 that scared me as much as, encountering a clicker for the first time in part 1. And that is realizing that you are now Abby playing against Ellie. That was horrifying. Ellie's a monster by that point. Ellie's I'm playing against basically me now. That's scary. And the work they do to create the Ellie AI, where she adapts to your playstyle, she plays like you played. That's great. That's really good. It's really impressive, and it is scary. I just wish the game was better.
Yeah, because it's a fun idea. It's the execution I have an issue with, and there's some really funny scenes out there. If you want to see people who really despise Abby's character and just have the multiple ways she can die, especially just in those scenes alone, it's just here's the true ending of the game, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, secret ending. Spike through the neck. That's awesome.
That does honestly make me very curious to why. I mean, I'm still so I'll go ahead and share my perspective, a little overarching on just watching the show and just watching season 2. I agree that the story in season 1 is way better. I think season 1 is a pretty great season of television. I do not think season 2 is bad by any means. I still enjoyed watching week to week. And I'm curious to see where it goes forward. It certainly got its issues, but I kind of like the shift in perspectives, and I like where the story is going. But so when episode 2 came out with Joel's death, and I was kind of because I kind of had a feeling he would die at some point. I was not expecting it to happen that soon. But I remember posting on my Instagram story about it, and there were people commenting on it who had played the game, so they knew it was coming, and they were asking my thoughts. And then others I could not watch this show anymore. They were in the same boat of me as only watch the show, and so they didn't know it was coming. And they were I can't watch this anymore. And I was I thought it was a bold choice, and it also, for me, what worked about that, looking at just the death specifically, I'm okay, Abby is not some comic book villain where she's going to draw out her plan and it's going to take forever. She's been hunting him for 5 years, and as soon as she gets a chance to confront him, she's going to take him out. She's been, already made. So I like that they went there, even though it's a bold move especially to kill off not only your main character, but also played by one of the biggest actors right now. That's a really bold move for a show, to, trust to go in a different direction. I appreciated the boldness of the storytelling there. As far as everything that's happened since then, I think there have been standout moments. There have been storylines I really others have progressed a little slower. I've still really enjoyed watching week to week, and I am really interested in seeing where it goes from here. Going back, I think I said this earlier, but I've seen some criticism levied at the show that it's not as nuanced and that it likes to make you, it kind of tells you who to root for. I really haven't got that feeling. I think it's done a good job of all the characters have their motivations, they have their backgrounds, where they're coming from, and it does kind of let you decide who to root for. And not even I don't know that there's really hardly any character you're going to root for 100%. I would say in this, maybe Jesse is sort of on the moral high ground here a little more so than some of the others, but I think all of them are presented in a more morally gray and flawed sense, and I do appreciate that. I think it lets the viewer kind of decide what they think about these characters. I never really got that the creators make it too heavy-handed and force it down your throats. So I think it's done a pretty good job. Again, season 1 is still a lot better, but I still think the show has done a good job carrying forward. Now, that said, I was not crazy about the season finale, especially coming off the episode before that was phenomenal. With so TJ just a little they do a full episode in the second to last one that is all of the moments leading up to Joel's death. So after he's already died, it's exploring the years between Ellie and Joel after season one and before his death, and I thought that was a stellar episode, and it lets you know that right before he died, Ellie had not forgiven him. She figured it out what happened, and that he lied to her about the Fireflies. But she said in that moment, "I want to be able to forgive you." And she's like, right. I thought it was a really beautiful moment. It was a really well acted scene. And so that was a brilliant episode. The season finale, I wasn't as crazy about because, okay, I hate any kind of season finale that, I like where a gun goes off and they cut to black. I was like, come on. Like, I mean, I know Ellie's not dead here, but still to like build up to this confrontation and then immediately cut to black. And then, okay, now we're going back 3 days earlier and the next season is going to be from Abby's perspective. I was like, okay, whatever. But that was, I was less than a fan of that. I like more, even in a season finale where you're getting another season, I still like to be some resolution, and I don't think it did that here. So that was frustrating. But there were still some really strong moments. Also, I mean, I know like the internet went crazy over like, this is so dumb, I'm not watching this somewhere, over the like, I'm going to be a dad, line. Okay, yeah, it was cheesy, but I also think it was cringy, but I'm also in the place of, in a show where you see so much horrible stuff happen to these characters every episode, okay, one cringy little like moment of levity, I really wasn't that offended or taken back. I was just like, yeah, they could have had another line there, but also Christian, because I know we had touched on this, I think not before this recording, but before another one, where you said that like, I think her and Dina's relationship progressed a little too fast. I see your point, but I also think that in a post-apocalyptic setting, if you find someone who you connect with and you have feelings for, I think it makes more sense to rush things a little more than you would in a normal setting. Because if you find someone and you have no idea if it's going to be your last day on Earth or not, then I kind of get, and they also, I mean, even though we don't see it all, they've spent some good amount of time together. They're going from Jackson to Seattle. They've been on the road together. They've bonded a lot. So I didn't really have a problem with that. And I kind of like their relationship, and and again, I was okay with some levity there when so much horrible stuff is happening. So I
think it's funny.
Yeah, it was but it was a little cringe, but I also think people way overreacted there of like, stop watching the show because of that line. I was like, come on, like that's like come on. But yeah, like
that's where you stop with all things.
Right, exactly. So so that's kind of my overall thoughts on season 2. I still liked it overall. I didn't think it was as good as season 1, but I also, anytime Jeffrey Wright shows up on screen in anything, I'm there for it. And he gives, I know he played that character in the game as well. And I really do like the WLF and Seraphite conflict there. And they both have like, horrible things they do on each side. It again shows this kind of like different sides to it. To that conflict, and I liked that as another part of the season. So overall, I still liked it. I mean, it doesn't have the same tightness and narrative focus as season 1, being very focused on Joel and Ellie. This one is a little more jumps to different perspectives and different storylines. Some mesh together, some don't. So that's kind of my, like, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, head over heels for the season, but I didn't dislike it either.
Yeah, and I just really think that if they decided to end part 2 with Ellie beating Abby to death with a golf club, great game.
We'd have world peace.
World peace.
Such a happy ending.
Would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Or if it was like a putter. Mix it up a little bit.
But
that would hurt.
I think one of my main gripes with this season so far is that it's a victim of yet again being in modern streaming and modern television making, and that we're going to stretch things out. Instead of doing, 12 to 26 episodes to tell a story in one season, we're gonna do 7 for one season. When I said they're ending at 7, I was like, what's next? I was like, that there isn't anything until 2 or 3 years from now. Even though, have they started filming yet? I wouldn't know either way. Even if they did, we're not going to get it until way later from now, because that's what modern media is. And I've rented it on other shows. If you're tired of it, I don't care. I'm going to keep saying it. It ruins hype for these things. It ruins people caring about them, because they're going to go, wait, what happened? And maybe they'll rewatch stuff, or maybe they'll lose interest because They forgot why they liked it in the first place. So I'm not big on that. And I think her and Dina is killed by this as well because they don't spend time to develop anything. And I never really bought them in the game either. But I would put that as a little better than what they've done in the show. And once again, I haven't done everything yet because they haven't done the entire game. But I see your point that you make of the apocalypse, things progressing unnaturally in that way, faster. But this isn't like, as opposed to a Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor, which is a whirlwind romance that takes place over a night, essentially. I believe far more in that than I do in this. And it really hurts what's happening on screen because I don't believe in it. They're always acting like a married couple, like it feels like 5 seconds into it being started. And I know, off-screen things have happened, but maybe if you spend an episode building up on that, I could believe it a little more.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and I 100%
that's
agree
just how
with
lesbians
you.
are. From my experience, all the ones I know, they're just kind of like that. Honestly,
No, I'm not going to comment there because I don't want to say.
I will. I will continue. They're called U-Haul lesbians. If you know the bit, it's a good one. 2 or 3 weeks, rent a U-Haul, move in together. It's real.
We can link.
It's a real thing.
Link that bit into the and.
Here at Systematic Ecology, we believe in a few things. We believe that there is freedom in Christ to like what you like. We believe that Christian nationalism is a heresy. And probably most important that I'm going to talk about today, at least, is that we believe the best place to spend your extra cash is on the Systematic Ecology merch store. That's right. This is a shameless shill for our own products. We go through Creator Spring, and we have a few great products on there. Me personally, I'm a big black shirt kind of guy, muted colors. But there's nothing better to throw a little something extra on there with a black baseball cap, the dad hat with the Systematic Ecology logo on it. That's a classic. I just really think if you got a couple, $30 extra, that's for us.
Christian, though, I do 100% agree of the modern streaming scope of like I mentioned the Arrowverse earlier. It was great getting 23 episode seasons there of yes, they had their ups and downs, but you got to really know those characters. You got some great storylines. You got episodes that were more standalone, but then fit into the larger narrative. You can't do that in 7-8 episodes anymore. And they have to either rush stuff or they stretch stuff out. And it's just, there are times where it works, but a lot of times it just doesn't, So I 100% agree there. And I think you would have got, and I get it. I know they have massive budgets and this is just the way TV works now, but I do miss because I think Arrowverse and, some sitcoms and stuff for the last times, we got that kind of full on, an actual season told a full story. And yes, still left it on notes to continue of okay, this villain is still out there or this storyline is set up, but you got a full story in a season. And I miss that because I said here, it leaves it on a massive cliffhanger.
Yep.
So I agree there. Yeah.
Yep.
But, is there anything else you want to say about you guys anyone want to say anything else about I know we're talking a lot about Abby and Ellie and everything, but about also WLF, the Seraphites, any of those kind of it's almost hard to call them side storylines because they're very connected to the overarching narrative, but some of those other elements that are introduced in Game 2, Season 2, any comments on any of that?
I will say the Seraphites don't really help their case of what people think they might think about religion. And it's not going to get better from here unless they change certain aspects, which I don't see they would. But once again, I don't expect modern Hollywood to show nuance when it comes to religion in the first place. But it would be nice.
It would be. Just to show, and especially here, they have kids in that cult and everything, But I think the closest thing we get to, I know it's not a religious sense, but the community of Jackson, seeing how these people live and work together in a dark setting, you get some the closest thing to rebuilding humanity and society through that lens, where they're pretty peaceful, but also one of the things Craig Mazin talks about is the tribalism aspect. They're all, even in a community like that where okay, there, see they're the point of view characters where you see like the goodness in them. They still are going to be out for each other, and that's why and not only Ellie but some of the others want to go out for vengeance because one of their own was taken.
Yeah, I will
that
say
kind of falls into a different trope of Hollywood communism.
Yeah,
and it's never actually been done in the world, guys. It's always been taken over by other things. And if you actually practice real communism, this would never happen. And it's a fantasy in the midst of my sci-fi. And I'm not big on it, how it's presented, as if it's perfect utopia. And I don't think they say the word perfect utopia, but it's clear what they mean. This is the way things should be. Go ahead, TJ. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Well, now I just want to say, I think communism works perfectly if there's like maybe 6 of you. Or like six people at a time. 6-person sects of communism. I think that is a flawless system. Beyond that, it gets a little rough. But I just wanted to mention it really quick because we didn't at all. The multiplayer in The Last of Us Part 1 was really cool. It was really good. I don't think it's playable anymore. The remake did not come with it. I'm fairly certain. Like Factions was not in the remaster, or not in the remake. It wasn't the remaster. It's kind of a mess. They've made The Last of Us 1 like 5 times. It's almost as bad as
Skyrim. Yeah. You want to talk about things in a bad way as modern gaming, or things get either remastered or remade instead of making a new game.
Yeah, but at least the games that get treated that way are,
I mean, they're good.
Generally,
don't get me wrong.
Skyrim, The Last of Us, that's pretty much it. Those are like the most egregious offenders. The Oblivion remaster just came out, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So multiplayer was awesome, and I wish it was still a thing. They did scrap the planned separate game that they had that was going to be multiplayer the same way that was. So we can think and imagine what it would have been like to have and play it.
Also, one thing we haven't really touched on that I do want to give a shout out to is just like the production quality and the cinematic aspects of the show. And how all I mean, like episode 2 of season 2, Joel's death, but also juxtaposed with that major battle in Jackson was incredible. Like I watched that episode twice just for that. That was brilliant. Yeah. And hey, even in this season was pretty like zombie light. I know that again, they're not zombies, but still, they're basically, but clicker light, whatever you want to call them, cordyceps light, that when they do show up and with the human battles, the production quality, the cinematography, the visual effects are astounding. I mean, I know it's HBO and they have a massive budget, but still, I do really compliment that. And if you're like me and you like the after show interviews and stuff that are really cool, like you can watch them on HBO Max, like it's called like Making of Last of Us. They give insights into both the writing and all the technical aspects, so I really like that, and I know that's the game quality is obviously astounding, but I appreciate that the show does its best to match that as well, in terms of cinematic execution and giving it real heart and soul in every image, and the cast is incredible,
Yeah, if nothing else, the final episodes of the show will look amazing.
Yeah,
because entering Seattle in in the game part 2, it was beautiful. It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
One thing they improved on in season 2 was putting the other enemy types that can be in the game in the show itself, because they really didn't do that in season 1. But we got to see like the Stalker and what was the Bloater or whatever it is, and in season 2, and that makes them even more of a threat, like they feel in the games when you're fighting them. So I appreciated the effort they put into that a lot.
Definitely, it is. Going back to what we were saying about, I would love longer seasons of TV. But I know that with a budget like this, you only have enough room for a certain number of episodes, so it's a catch-22. But yes, the production quality here is amazing. So yeah, what is the idea? I know we've covered a lot of ground here. Do you have any other thoughts about Last of Us as a whole? I know TJ, you just haven't watched this season yet, but probably will. Christian, are you still? Because I know people who have dropped off of the show at this point. Are you still invested enough to continue? I personally am. I definitely, like I said, I like season 1 a lot better, but I still like this season enough, and I definitely am going to keep watching. Are you, when season 3 drops, are you like, yes, I'm there opening night, or are you kind of like, I'll get around to it?
I am of the belief that unless something really personally offends me, or if it's smut, I don't watch it. It's just offended me. but not in a way that I would never read it again. Like, say, for instance, I have not bought a single Amazing Spider-Man comic for myself since One More Day. That has personally offended me to the point where Spider-Man would sell his marriage to the Marvel analog of Satan and Mephisto, and he be treated as a hero for doing so. That is antithetical to his character. They're not getting a dime from me there. But I can buy the Ultimate Spider-Man because it's a different continuity. That's how I feel about this. That hasn't personally offended me. It's like, this is the worst thing ever. So I'm gonna watch it because Mama didn't raise no quitter. But that's the only reason why. It's not because I think it's great. It's because I started it. I'm gonna finish.
That's fair. Yeah. No, I was just curious. Yeah.
I kind of feel like people who did play the game are more likely to stop watching the show.
Interesting.
That's because that's really why I haven't started watching season 2.
Yeah, interesting. If it, especially you kind of know where it's going. Yeah. Well, no, that's why I really wanted to get you guys' perspectives on this. Like, I played the game, and this kind of helps me understand more. Because, like, again, I just saw so much backlash, like, with this season, and I'm like, okay, I didn't like it as much as season 1, but I still quite enjoyed it. And like, and I'm gonna keep watching. But I think, like, yeah, playing the game, knowing a little more, it does change your perspective, certainly. So
yeah, I have. Well, you mentioned it earlier. People stopped watching the show when Joel died. I mentioned him earlier. My friend, also named Josh, hilariously enough, I call him Josh with the best opinions. But The Last of Us is his favorite game of all time. He has The Last of Us tattoos, like 2 of them. I think it's 2 of them. But when Joel died in the game, he didn't play it for like 2 or 3 weeks, and he was just kind of sad. Just the whole time in real life. It was crazy. It was so wild to see.
Well, and it does speak to how well a story is written when you get that invested in a character that, even if you probably, like, from a narrative standpoint, kind of saw it coming. Like I said, I thought it would happen at some point. I didn't expect it in the show that early, but that just shows how you can get invested in a character that much that you really feel a visceral reaction when they are killed off in the story, and it makes it hard to continue. So I think that speaks to the strength of the storytelling.
Yep, it's good. It's really good.
Well, if you guys had to give a rating and so you feel free to like rate the game and the show, and I know this is a little tough because you're looking at like the whole story. So like I can start, so having only watched the show and looking at it as a whole, both seasons, I would give it an 8 out of 10, because again, part of it is that I ranked the first season really high, with very few criticisms, and season 2, I have a little more, but I also didn't dislike it, but so if I'd round it out, I think I would give the overall series an 8 out of 10. It's overall very strong storytelling. It has episodes I'm never going to forget, storylines I'm never going to forget, characters, and I am still very much invested in it and am going to continue. So that's kind of where I stand on the show as a whole. But if you guys have a rating for the game and the show, do you think you settled on one?
Okay, so Last of Us Part 1, the game, 9.5 out of 10. It's not perfect. It was still 2013. It was a little clunky. There are some issues there. Divisive ending. I like the ambiguity personally, but it's not perfect. The show, probably also 9 out of 10. Okay, The Last of Us Part 2, the game, 5. 5 out of 10. I think it is where that belongs for me. I haven't seen the show, so I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Last of Us Part 1, the game, I've been mulling it over this entire time, and I think I'm willing to throw out a 10. The first game really drew me in. I love the characters. I love the world building. I love the combat. They suckered me in pretty well. Switching protagonists halfway through is a gutsy move, and it's done extremely well. Made you care about Ellie more. I'm not big on the ending, but just because I give something a 10 out of 10 doesn't mean I don't find a flaw in it. It just means that I'm willing to overlook certain parts of that flaw. Part 2, I think, is worthy of a 2 out of 10. And I'm giving it that because the gameplay is improved immensely. From what I've watched and listening to the person who was playing it, how they like the way the controls are different and how they changed the AI and stuff. So I'm willing to throw them a bone there. So I officially rated as well as I do the Acolyte. Then season 1, I would give a 9 out of 10. They could have used a couple extra episodes to build things up, but it's still really solid. Pedro and Bella are perfect together. They work off of each other really well. And that's something that's kind of missing in season 2, which I'm going to put a 6 out of 10 because the worst is yet to come.
Yeah. I feel like Pedro Pascal could probably do anything. And I would watch him do anything. It was like, oh, Pedro Pascal, Mr. Fantastic. I would let him play Mr. Fantastic and the Human Torch at the same time.
He's one of those actors. I mean, I know he's in everything right now, but like, I don't mind it. I know, like, I mean, he seems like a wonderful person in real life, and I mean, I don't like to put celebrities on a pedestal, but he genuinely does seem like a really cool dude. And I think he's perfect for this role, especially.
Yeah, I think his worst role is still the best part of a bad movie. It's Wonder Woman,
which is,
if you're wondering.
Gosh, Wonder Woman
yes.
is part. I know,
like,
I forgot there's that.
The only good part of that movie.
Yeah.
I know that. I hope he gets another DC role because I don't want that to be his only DC thing. Like,
let him be Aquaman.
Sure, Aquaman. Ooh, I could
plays
see
Jason
that.
Momoa.
Could see that, especially because Momoa is going to be why am I talking about Lobo?
Yeah.
So Momoa's got another role.
That's good casting, though.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's a great casting.
It really is. Yeah.
Let Pedro be Lobo.
Just alternate between scenes.
Yeah. Just change it every minute. Yeah. I love it.
Or Pedro could be like Black Manta.
Might be problematic, but yeah. We'll see.
Maybe.
But yeah.
We'll make him Wonder Woman.
I would watch that.
I know a ton of people who would watch that. Yeah, in a heartbeat. Yeah.
Yeah, I would watch that.
Yep.
Or if it was like, he was White Wolf, Marvel, you know, that would be pretty cool.
Well, on that note, but guys, do you have a recommendation for our viewers, listeners, whether it's related to this topic or something entirely different? I can start with this one. Christian, this is a movie you should especially see that I got an early screening of last week, but The Life of Chuck. It is the new Mike Flanagan film based on a Stephen King short story. That it's a kind of lesser known King story from a few years ago. With an amazing cast: Tom Hiddleston, Karen Gillan, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Mark Hamill. Without going into deep spoilers, it starts off in an apocalyptic setting, and there's this guy on a billboard everywhere, and the people don't know who he is. And the movie goes back and tells that guy's life story, but it tells it backwards, and it is heart-wrenching and beautiful, and it's Flanagan's first non-horror project. Obviously not King's, but Flanagan's first, and It is so moving and so powerful. Highly recommended. It's playing in theaters now. Like I said, I caught an early screening of it last week and loved it. And also Mike Flanagan reposted my post about it because I tagged him in it, and he reposted. So now I'm on the same feed as like Mark Hamill, and so I can say that as my cred now. Yes,
sweet.
Yeah,
so
I think if it bleeds, I think is the anthology that's in. I think I have that one, so I can read that at the very least.
Yes, highly recommend. So yeah, so that's my pick. TJ, you got a recommendation?
Man, I'm just sitting here trying to think of like other like post-apocalypse media for people to consume. If you're a gamer, you've never played Dying Light, you need to. You need to, because that's really what I'm thinking about. You know, specifically thinking about part 2. If you're going to play part 2, just play part 1 instead. If you don't want to play Last of Us Part 1 again, play Dying Light. I love Dying Light. That is another phenomenal real zombie game. So good. That also has a slightly disappointing sequel.
Good pick. I like it. Christian, what about you?
Yeah, the other book that I've finished recently is The Lost World by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It is very much of its time, I will put it that way, in how it treats some of the minority characters, but that's what I expect from that time period, so it doesn't bother me because I know when it's written. But someone who's made a little more sensitive about that, I just want to put that out there. So you might want to avoid it. It's not his best work, but it's dinosaurs in South Africa, and it's a lot of fun. So there you go.
It's good pick. I like it. Very cool.
South America, not Africa. Sorry.
Didn't you say South America?
Did I? You know what? I always double guess.
I'm not sure.
And check myself. I never remember anything, man. I'm just here.
I heard South America. I'm sure someone else did too.
I love it. But yeah. Well, guys, this has been a blast. I always love geeking out with you guys. And yeah, check out Last of Us. Let us know your thoughts. You know, join us on Discord. We can continue the conversation there. And again, we want to thank all of our Patreon subscribers, all of our followers, and please give us a like, give us a share, tell your friends about us. We would love any kind of support. And again, like us on any videos on YouTube. Again, Will Rose's promise holds still. If you want to see that happen, we can make it happen. So everyone, thanks so much for listening and watching, and we will see you next time. And remember, we are all a chosen people, a victim of priests.
Hello there, listener. This is Evan Garcia, and I just wanted to jump in here to remind you and to let you know of our Facebook groups and our Discord server. These are great communities where you can post and share memes and talk with the hosts, and we have votes and some polls for future episode topics and fun interactions with our host. So just wanted to remind you that we are focused on community with you listeners, and we love each and every one of you guys listening. Thank you guys.
Hi friends, it's Laura here, and I just wanted to say thank you for listening to our show. Systematic Geekology is a part of a larger podcast network called the Anazal Podcast Network. Dummy for Theology is Joshua Noel's show discussing different theological topics from various perspectives and attempting to give people more questions than answers. My Seminary Life is Brandon Knight's show. It started as him going through what he was learning in seminary, and after he graduated, he's been doing independent studies and has a lot of fun series like on hermeneutics, Bonhoeffer Summer, and worship. And then Friday Night Frights is a monthly show with Christian Ashley and Joe Day. They have a vote on the Systematic Geekology Facebook group to choose a topic each month and discuss everything from cryptos to ghosts to aliens to serial killers and more. So we hope you'll give it a listen, and thanks for being part of what we're putting out there.